Okay, so David Hume. David Hume was an empiricist philosopher, which is kind of the opposite of the rationalists, like Descartes and Spinoza. And his biggest, he had a bunch of ideas, but his main idea was sort of the fact that cause and effect doesn't exist, and that you can't link an action with with a result. But before we get to that, we have to talk about a few things first. There's some definitions he has. He refers to relation of ideas, which I think Kant calls analytical truths or analytic truths. And these are things that you cannot contradict, no matter what. All men are mortal. 2 + 2 is 4. You know, it's always going to be like that, no matter what. He talks next about matters of fact, which are statements that can be denied without contradiction. So, the sun will rise tomorrow. I don't know that the sun will rise tomorrow. It probably will, because it did yesterday and today and the day before and the day before and the day before and all the way back, but it might not. So a matter of fact is something that can be denied without logical contradiction. He talks about impressions, which are basically sense experience. So any information we gather through sight, sound, touch, hearing, taste, anything. And then ideas are sort of our thoughts, beliefs, or memories that we connect to impressions. So he actually has a quote where he says that impressions, he says, by the term impressions, then I mean all of our more lively perceptions, when we hear or see or feel or love or hate or desire or will. And impressions are distinguished from ideas, which are less lively perceptions of which we are conscious when we reflect on any of those sensations of movements above mentioned. So, yeah, ideas are sort of our recollection of impressions. He talks about that there's 3 main ways that our mind sort of gathers information. There's resemblance, contiguity, and cause and effect. Resemblance is pretty simple. If we see a picture of something, it leads our mind to the original. So if I see a picture of a house, I think of that house. Contiguity is if I think of one room in a house, my mind is sort of drawn to the other rooms in the house. It's all sort of within that region. And then cause and effect. The example he gives here is, if we think of a wound, we can scarcely forbear reflection on the pain which follows it. So if you hurt yourself, or if you cut yourself, you know it's going to hurt because you've cut yourself in the past. However, he does believe that cause and effect are 2 separate events, because just because something happened once before doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen again. The example he gives is that of a billiard ball, and there's a good quote here. When I see, for instance, a billiard ball moving in a straight line towards another, even suppose motion in the second ball should by accident be suggested to me as a result of their contact or impulse, may I not conceive that in 100 different events might as well follow from that cause? May not both balls remain at absolute rest? May not the first ball return in a straight line, or leap off from the second line in any line or direction? All these suppositions are consistent and conceivable. Why then should we give preference to one, which is no more conceivable than the rest? We make laws, laws of physics and things like that supposedly can tell us exactly how one thing will react to a certain event, but Hume is saying that, well, there's no way we can know this to be true because, well, we just can't, because we can't know the future. There's nothing that we can sort of know for certain. That was his biggest idea, that cause and effect cannot be linked. He also had some smaller but equally important ideas. He has a chapter called Of the Reason of Animals, in which he believes that animals were able to infer the relation between cause and effect in the same way humans do, through learning and sense experience. But humans and animals do differ in mental faculties, the amount we can remember, the amount we can pay attention, things like that. Basically, we can do things like that more than animals because we're sort of smarter. And then he talks about a chapter called Of a Particular Providence and of a Future State, where he talks about the afterlife, and basically that he says, while we might suggest that there's a first cause beyond all things, God, we can't assert anything about the afterlife because we don't know it from experience. So basically there is nothing other than the subjective realm, which we know. There is no sort of perfectly objective world. The end.